Today, I'll be kind of summarizing what we covered in our 30-minute presentation back on last Thursday about number theory and cryptography. So I hope I'll be able to fit all this information in somewhere maybe between 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, let's get going. So basically for this research topic, we were asked to study the use of number theory in modern cryptography and how it fits into its techniques. So number theory is integral to different methods of modern cryptography systems, such as RSA, which is widely used method of encryption. So in order to understand how we can use number theory, we need a good understanding of maths behind number theory, namely modular arithmetic. So modular arithmetic and number theory fits into it's being used by every single modern crypto system, whether it's Affine, RSA, Diffie-Hellman. It's basically everywhere in the modern crypto systems. Yeah. So cryptography is the process of transferring information securely so that no third party will be able to understand the message. So it's also the study of sending and receiving secret messages. Cryptography has been mainly used in military and diplomatic communications, and it's imperative that we have a strong method of encryption. Cryptography is also used in our everyday life to protect the confidentiality of our information, thus credit card details and passwords being sent over the network. And number theory allows us to use strong encryption algorithms that we need. So basically, cryptography is needed so that, to protect basically the information being carried over the network that, is concerned with the security of a country, or whether it's just the security of our own bank accounts or of our own information. So cryptography is basically needed in modern times. There are various basic ciphers that can be used to encrypt messages using various algorithms. So taking Caesar's, for instance, works by shifting the letters in the alphabet by a certain number, either left or right direction, which gives us the possibility of having many different alphabets to write in. So this cipher was used and can be used to encrypt messages, but it's not very secure as it can be broken quite easily by a computer or someone with necessary resources, time, and manpower, as there's not many possibilities or variations in the algorithm. So these types of ciphers can be used in modern environment as they're widely known and are easily broken by hand and even easier by computer. So the use of modern encryption methods such as RSA employ a public and a private key crypto system that uses certain elements of number theory mathematics and gives us an encrypted message that is very hard to break using a computer and nearly impossible to break by hand. So weak ciphers aren't very effective today because they're widely known and can be very easily broken by hand or by the computer. So long story short, avoid using those. Number theory is the study of the properties of the whole numbers and the relationship between those numbers. So it's one of the oldest branch of mathematics, and it's a part of basic number theory. And the part of basic number theory is modular arithmetic, which is concerned with the modulo operator or the remainder. So in modular arithmetic, we find the congruent values of numbers that are in a world or mod of other numbers. So modular arithmetic works like a clock. As we count upwards, we reset our count when the modulus is reached. So that clock arithmetic or modular arithmetic or whatever you want to call it is basically important in every single crypto system we use today. And I'm going to show you in the next slide how it works. So if we take, for example, 8 mod 4, or 8 in a world of 4, it's going to be congruent to 0, whereas 9 mod 4 is going to be congruent to 1, and so on until we reach 12 mod 4, which is congruent to 0, and the value resets. So the whole clock resets, and 13 mod 4 is going to be 1 again. So if we take a number that is smaller than our mod, so for example 2 mod 4, it's going to be itself since it already exists in the world of 4. So 2 is going to be itself in the world of 4. Another point to note is that mod of the negative number, in this case, is the mod of the negative number. So in this case, we follow the same pattern or clock, but in reverse. So taking an example of mod 4, so minus 2 mod 4 is 2 on our clock since we're going backwards this time. So an example of an asymmetric crypto system that uses modular arithmetic is RSA. In RSA, Alice and Bob both have their own public encryption key and a private decryption key. If Alice wants to send a message to Bob, she encrypts her message using Bob's public key. Then Bob again uses his private decryption key to convert Alice's ciphertext back to plain text. The public key is known to everyone, but the private key is known only to the holder. So modular arithmetic's role can be shown using this example. So Alice wants to send a message 35 to Bob. And Bob says, here, use this public key of x, where x is the message, so 35, to the power of 19 mod 943 to encrypt this message. And this produces a ciphertext of 376. Bob then takes that ciphertext and puts the 376 in the place of x, the power of 139 modulo 943, to decrypt the 376 back to 35, the original message. So mathematically speaking, Bob's public and private key acts like a lock and an unlock for any incoming messages that are a unique pair of algorithms that have the effect of locking and unlocking message. So basically in RSA, both parties have their own public and private key, and they use that to basically lock and unlock messages. So using a method like RSA is a tremendous advantage over previously mentioned crypto systems such as ciphers, and the reason for this is the mathematical difficulty in decrypting messages that employ the use of RSA. So in the background of RSA, we start off by selecting two large prime numbers, P and Q. We then multiply those numbers, so P and Q, to give us N, which is the world, or which gives us the mod, or the world, in which we are going to decrypt and encrypt our messages. So finally, we calculate the phi of n, which is p minus 1 multiplied by q minus 1, which gives us the modular world in which the lock and the key are created. So if an attacker wanted to break this system, they would have to find phi of n by factorizing n for both p and q, but factorizing a very large product for the two primes is extremely difficult to do, and it's nearly impossible. So if Alice's ciphertext is intercepted, there's no feasible way by hand, mathematically or mechanically, to decrypt the message without knowing Bob's private decryption key or the factors of n, p, and q. So basically, long story short, the RSA is like very secure because of the factoring. It's very hard to kind of factor the product of like the two prime numbers, and that is kind of the biggest kind of difficulty in breaking RSA. It can be broken probably mechanically, like eventually, so it is possible, but it's like absolutely impossible time-wise, as probably would take you hundreds of thousands of years because like, you know, assuming that your numbers are chosen are large enough. So Diffie-Hellman is now it's not a type of a crypto system. It's more of an asymmetric key creation system that creates kind of symmetric keys to be used with other crypto systems and or other ciphers. So although it's not as secure as RSA, it's a good example of application of modular arithmetics in cryptography. This algorithm differs from RSA in that instead of both parties having their own set of public and private keys, both individuals agree or come to the same public and private keys. So similar to RSA, Diffie-Hellman is only effective if the values used to encrypt and decrypt are sufficiently large enough so as to render the private key practically unbreakable. So in Diffie-Hellman, both parties share their public and private key together, and providing that the numbers are large enough, it's going to be very tough to break. So let's use Alice and Bob as our parties again. Alice and Bob start off by agreeing on the common base of G and the common mod, or the prime number of P, which leads to the shared formula of G to the power of X modulo P, and this is the public key that is shared. Alice and Bob then decide on their own individual private keys to substitute in for X in the public formula. Alice chooses A and Bob chooses B. They both then individually calculate the result of their substitution, and Alice calculates the result of G to the power of her private key modulo P, whereas Bob calculates the result of G to the power of his private key modulo P. So they both send the results to each other and kind of fit it into their formula into their formulas. So Alice takes basically the formula that Bob used with his private key, and takes that to the power of her private key, so to the power of A modulo P. And Bob does the same, but first he takes the Alice's formula and then takes her formula to the power of his private key, so to the power of B modulo P. And the result of the two of those formulas is equal to G to the power of A multiplied by B modulo P, which is then agreed upon a shared private key that Alice and Bob will use to send each other encrypted messages. Now suppose we have 300-digit prime for P and around 100-digit number for each A and B. With the size of these values, the system is practically unbreakable, and providing that the numbers are chosen are large enough. So if you choose your numbers, right, it's going to be very tough to break the Diffie-Hellman. Not as hard as RSA, but still tough. So just to summarize all of those, the number theory is the study of whole numbers and their properties. So basic or outdated ciphers can be used in non-security critical message exchange. However, their lack of complexity and relative simplicity means they're not effective in modern world. Modular arithmetic is also concerned with the remainders from the integer division and the congruency